I'm David Martinez, and for most of my life, I thought I understood people. 34 years old, corporate tax attorney, built my life brick by brick with the discipline my parents drilled into me. But nothing prepared me for the moment I realized the woman I loved and her mother saw me as nothing more than a walking wallet. This is the story of the night everything shattered, and the night I finally stopped pretending I didn't see the truth. It happened over dinner, but the truth had been building for years, quietly, invisibly, like mold behind a wall. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of believing silence was peace. That accommodation was love. That patience was loyalty. 10 years of ignoring the subtle digs, the sophisticated snobbery, the way Celine and her mother always carried themselves like royalty stuck in a peasant's world. But it was my house, the one I bought long before they came into my life, paid in full in 2012 with settlement money from a case that put me on the map. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a quiet suburban neighborhood. And yet somehow, whenever Margot visited, it always felt like I was the guest. Margot had been staying with us for 3 weeks at that point. 3 weeks of drinking my wine, sleeping in my guest room, rearranging my furniture because Americans have no aesthetic sense. 3 weeks of subtle insults, condescension, and European superiority dripping from every syllable. She didn't work, never had, claimed to live off a trust fund that, I would later learn, had dried up 8 years ago. Her daughter, my wife, had followed her example. Celine hadn't worked a day in her life. Degree in art history, fancy private school, fancy college, and nothing to show for either except expensive taste and a unique talent for spending money that wasn't hers. For most of our marriage, I never checked the accounts. Autopay handled everything. I made $240,000 a year. We lived comfortably. I trusted her. That was my first mistake. 3 months ago, I noticed a few strange withdrawals. $300 here, $500 there. Then bigger ones. Designer boutiques, furniture stores, art galleries, places I'd never set foot in. And transfers, small ones at first, from our joint account into Celine's personal account. Then from her account to Margot. Weekly, consistent, growing. I logged into Celine's bank account. She'd left the password on a post-it note and found $47,000 sitting there. All my money. I called my brother Carlos, a private investigator. 2 weeks later, he sent the file. The truth hit harder than any betrayal I'd ever imagined. Celine had been siphoning money from me for 3 years. $130,000 in total. $65,000 she kept for herself. The rest transferred to Margot in New York to maintain her lifestyle. Spa days, boutique shopping, condo fees, car payments, lavish dinners, all on me. Her trust fund was gone. Her money was gone. They were living off me. Parasites feeding parasites, all while smiling at my dinner table, all while calling Americans classless, all while mocking the man who paid for every luxury they enjoyed. I consulted 3 divorce attorneys. They all said the same thing. Build the case, document everything, wait for the right moment. So I hid cameras. Smoke detector, bookshelf, lamp, tiny, invisible, perfect. 3 weeks of footage, 3 weeks of insults, 3 weeks of them laughing at me in French, assuming I couldn't understand them. But I speak 4 languages, English, Spanish, Portuguese, and the one they never asked about, French. Last Monday, Margot announced she'd be extending her stay another month. The weather in New York is dreadful, Cherie. I simply must remain. I smiled, genuinely, because the timing was perfect. I told them I'd cook dinner Friday night. Celine looked surprised, maybe even suspicious, but she said nothing. I made beef bourguignon from scratch, the way a French chef once taught me during a tax case we worked together on. 6 hours of preparation, slow, savory, rich. The smell filled the house. When 7 o'clock came, the table was set perfectly. Candles lit, Bordeaux breathing, bread warm, the best dinner I had made in years. When they sat down, I felt like I was watching the opening scene of a movie where the villains had no idea the hero already knew the plot twist. Margot started first, speaking in French. Regardless, he eats like an animal. Celine giggled softly. Mom, stop. But she didn't. You should have married Philippe. Old money. Class. This one, acceptable, but no class. Celine shrugged. At least he makes money. Yes, Margot said. His money is good. They laughed. They laughed at me in my house, at my table, eating food I made, drinking wine I bought with money they stole. I finished chewing, set down my fork, took a long, slow sip of wine, and then said in perfect, crisp Parisian French, "Good, because tonight you're both leaving with nothing." Silence, pure, suffocating silence. Margot's fork froze midair. Celine's wine glass trembled. Their faces drained of color so fast I wondered if they were about to faint. "Tu parles français?" Margot whispered. "Fluently," I replied. "I lived in Paris for 2 years after college, worked for an international firm. I've understood every word you've said for the last 10 years, and every insult for the last 3 weeks." Celine panicked first. "David, please, let me explain." "Explain the $130,000 you stole from me?" I switched to English. "Or the $47,000 sitting in your secret account? Or the wire transfers to your mother? Which part do you want to explain?" I pulled out my phone, showed them the records, the statements, the Venmo transfers, everything. Celine's hands shook. "You've been spying on me." "I've been checking my own money," I corrected. "Money you've been draining." She tried to argue community property, but I slid the prenup across the table, the one her mother insisted on, thinking it protected Celine. Ironically, it protected me. Separate assets, separate earnings. My house remained mine. My income remained mine. The only joint asset was the credit card Celine had maxed out multiple times. Then I pulled out the divorce papers. The panic in Celine's eyes was almost heartbreaking. Almost. "David, you can't." "I already have," I said. Right on cue, I opened the front door. Carlos walked in. So did Patricia, my divorce attorney. Sharp, cold, brilliant. "Mrs. Martinez," Patricia said, setting her briefcase down, "you have 24 hours to vacate the property." Celine sobbed. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Your mother's condo," I answered. "Assuming you can keep it. She's 4 months behind on fees." Margot looked like she'd been punched. "How do you know that?" "Because you've been stealing from me," I said, "and you still couldn't keep yourself afloat." Patricia played the recordings, crystal clear audio of Margot calling me stupid, classless, useful only for money, Celine begging to keep the scheme going, Margot smugly guaranteeing I'd never notice. Celine collapsed into tears. "David, please, I love you. You love my money." I took off my ring, set it on the table. "This marriage is over." They packed slowly, painfully. Margot even tried to steal a painting. Carlos stopped her. "It's a print from Home Goods," I said. $89, put it back. When they finally left, 3 suitcases each, pride bleeding all over the floor, it felt like a decade's worth of weight evaporated off my shoulders. In the weeks that followed, everything fell apart for them. Hotel bills, declined cards, foreclosure notices, failed legal motions, desperate calls from blocked numbers, Celine's brother apologizing on behalf of his family, Margot planning to flee the country, and I stayed silent, focused, steady. Because when someone shows you who they are, you don't give them another chance to sharpen the knife. Now the divorce is underway. The civil suit is nearly wrapped. The money will come back, piece by piece, and my home is finally quiet. But sometimes at night I catch myself replaying that dinner, not with sadness, not with regret, but with clarity. 10 years of pretending ended in one sentence, in one language they thought I didn't understand. Good, because tonight you're leaving with nothing, and they did. If you were in my place, would you have forgiven her? Or did I do exactly what needed to be done? Let me know in the comments.